Good morning, everyone. Or I know it's not morning for probably anyone else except for a few of us. Thank you so much for joining this webinar. We are super excited to learn a little bit more about Millersville University. We will have a brief presentation on all things Millersville U, and then we will open up the webinar and do a Q&A session. So please either write in any questions you have during the presentation or hold them till the end and we will definitely get to them. With that, I will hand it over to Jatine to introduce himself.
Yeah, hi, Darby. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining this webinar for Millersville University. Here we have Director MENA, Michael, with us, and we have Yasmin as well. She's also taking care of MENA market with Michael. We have recently joined a new member in our team. His name is Shrikant Balakurti. He's based in Hyderabad. So if you guys need any support, any information about Millersville University after this session, feel free to connect with us, connect with me, connect with Shrikant or any of us, and we will be happy to solve your answers and queries. Thank you very much. And now, Darby, please take care. Go ahead with this.
Yeah, if Michael and Yasmin want to introduce themselves real quick.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Francis. I'm the regional director for the MENA region. I also have my colleague Yasmin, who is representing the Levant region as well. Yasmin, if you can just introduce yourself briefly.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yasmin Werde. I am the student recruitment manager for the Levant region. It's nice to have you all here.
Perfect. And I will leave the stand to Anna to introduce herself and to kickstart the webinar.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Anna Bradford. I am the Associate Director of International Admissions here at Millersville University, affectionately known as the Ville. As you can see, with these really great fun letters we have students sometimes pose with in front of our main building. So I have a pleasure today of introducing my institution. This presentation is going to be similar to the presentations that I would typically give students. So it's going to start first off with introducing the Millersville region, introducing Millersville, the institution, some of our programs, and the things that we offer on campus, and then going into admission. At the end, I'll stop sharing my screen and go to our website and just give you a brief tour of what our website looks like for navigating purposes, just because Millersville is a little unique in that we have 4 admitting offices. So I want to highlight for you exactly where you would go on the website at the end of this presentation. And I'm more than happy to address any of your questions at the end of the presentation, but I'm very much hoping a lot of those questions will be answered during the presentation. So starting off with Millersville University's location, we are located on the east coast of the continental United States in the state of Pennsylvania. And we are in a region that is pretty accessible to major cities. So right off of what would be the Beltway on the East Coast. So we're within about 2.5 hours to New York City by train, about 1 hour and 15 minutes from Philadelphia, about 2.5 hours really by car. You would go by car to Washington, D.C., also accessible by train. In this map here, you can see the little plane icons. Those are all going to be international airports, so we're quite accessible. And we're actually closer to New York City and Philadelphia than we are to Pittsburgh, another city that's separated from us by mountains in the same state. So it's a really great location. And it is a very peaceful, beautiful, historic. It's the oldest inland city. Lancaster City, within 10 minutes by car from us, is the oldest inland city in the continental United States. So it has a lot of history. And if you could see that silhouette here on the slide, we're actually famous for being known as the Amish region. So there's a lot of people that still drive and plow their fields using horses and buggies. So we have a lot of history. We were actually the capital of the United States for one day during the Revolutionary War. But this region is growing. It's actually one of the fastest growing areas in the state of Pennsylvania, which is the 6th largest GDP in the United States. So there's a lot of growth here. There's a lot of new hip things to do downtown. So we have a lot of students that will actually just go downtown to Lancaster on the weekends instead of going into a larger city. So it's known as a newly hip Victorian city, largely because of the architecture. It's quite beautiful, but that has brought a lot of artists, a lot of people to the region. This building right here is actually our central market. It's one of the main staples in the region. It's one of the oldest buildings in the region, and it's definitely a heart of the arts in the area. Millersville is also, or Lancaster County is very hospitable. Lancaster City is one of 18 welcoming cities in the entire United States. It is a certification that's pretty difficult to achieve, as your local government, businesses, and nonprofits have to be on board. So it's a very welcoming area and very diverse. There actually are many refugees that have found their home and relocated in the area. Actually, 1 block away from that one region downtown that I just showed you is a huge dining, or it's called the Southern Market, that has a lot of little pop-up restaurants. And these two are just examples of families that have restarted businesses in the area after having to relocate here. So it's definitely an area that your students can feel welcome. There's over 13 international grocery stores, as well as a lot of different places for them to eat. So it's somewhere that you can send them knowing they're going to feel welcome. They're going to have the charm of the US as well as around the world. So now I want to transition to talking about Millersville University with a welcome from our president. Dr. Wuba is actually from Ghana, and he came to the United States as an international student himself. And he is quite unique because while he leads our university by day, he is also still the chief of his tribe in Ghana. So he's part of the tribal council and travels there frequently. He actually brought a trade delegation from Ghana to campus to talk about trade and business in a forum recently. So that's another way that we have an international focus on campus from the top down. And that really has set the tone for the agenda at Millersville University. Established in 1855, Millersville University was originally a teacher's college, one of the first teacher's colleges in the country and the very first in the state of Pennsylvania. But we have expanded quite greatly since then, but we still have a very strong teacher's thrust and focus here on campus. And most of our professors, all of our professors, have that heart of a teacher that's really going to be the focus of what they're doing here on campus. And Millersville is quite proud of the distinctions that we have been able to garner within that time. So recognized by US News and World Report as top 30 public universities in North for some time consecutively. Some of the distinctions I'm quite proud of on this slide, there's 3 in particular. ADT, your local security, has recognized Millersville University as one of the safest universities within the country, 6th in the nation, 1st in Pennsylvania in 2021. We rank quite highly in terms of safety. For the Times Impact, the Sustainable Development Goals rankings, we were one of the first US institutions on the first batch of that rankings, within only 42 US institutions selected for that ranking. It's a thrust on our campus. And we actually host an annual conference related to sustainability that our president is going to be speaking at this year. And then the Insight into Diversity Award, we have been receiving that for 11 years in a row. Only 147 US institutions have that distinction across the country. And we're very proud to have it very consistently. So just like our region, as well as the thrust of our campus, we're very welcoming and a safe place for students from around the world. So here are the numbers of our institution to be able to give you some context for our size. We're about a mid-sized institution with just under 7,000 students. 6,000 of those are undergraduate. So we are a very undergraduate heavy campus with some grad. And we have a very good teacher to student ratio at 19:1 with smaller average class sizes. So coming back to that heart of a teaching campus, wanting to make sure that students have the attention and support of staff and faculty here. We have over 100 programs, which I'll unpack on this next slide, with over 170 clubs and organizations. And those clubs and organizations are going to range from intramurals to academics. We have Greek life here on campus, so sororities and fraternities, a lot of areas in which students can get involved. The over 100 programs that we have on campus are divided within these 4 different colleges. Listed here on the slide are the most popular programs for our international students. We have students with more than 1 major, with a major and 2 minors. So they do have the capability of being able to tailor their program as well. And a lot of Millersville University majors have concentrations within them. So for example, our applied engineering program has a lot of different thrusts. So we have an automation and AI. We have a few different thrusts within that. And so there's also different ways for them to be able to tailor programs like biology. So we have like molecular biology, different types of biology, which would be a biology major with a concentration. So when you go onto the website, you'll see a lot of different listings there. So there is diversity within those programs as well. A lot of different academic resources here on campus that students are able to take advantage of. For example, our university college was actually born out of a teacher-student alliance. So our university really does support that linkage between our professors and our students. They still have a forum for advocacy called Together Strong. So there's still possibilities for students to be able to be part of that, as well as the university college and those support services, which have become more formalized. And also through that, opportunities for research grants and support come up as well. A lot of students will be able to find those through the university directly, but also professors are very commonly helping students be able to find those as well. Our experiential learning and career management office would be our career services center, through which students can have multiple experiential opportunities. So of course, internships, as well as different local linkages within companies in the area, and sponsor programs and research. So there's a lot of opportunities for students to be able to engage in research. For example, we have our own homegrown conference, which actually is going to be taking place next week. It's called Made in Millersville. So students from every discipline, they submit proposals, are selected, and they will present like you would present at any major conference within the different knowledge domains. And this is a great way for students to be able to get that research experience, to be able to put themselves out there in a very supportive environment. And we also have a journal called Made in Millersville Journal, where a lot of those students, really high quality research is being able to publish there. And some students that are very industrious can cycle that around once it's been published once, have it published again. So this is one of the tangible ways in which Millersville is able to show students and prepare them for the future through this conference. So this next slide is really highlighting our traditions here on campus. A few of them, these 2 pictures here are actually from the initial weeks of welcome here. And those weeks of welcome really is the first month that we welcome students back to campus in the fall term. So between the end of August to early September, that first picture of all the students with candles around the lake is welcoming students back. We have alumni and current students that light the candles of future students, bringing them into that community, as well as a parade that happens right before homecoming, where a lot of our international students within our office will march through town with their flags, celebrating where they're from. There's a few other events throughout the year. I highlighted Made in Millersville, and then in a few weeks, we're going to have our celebration of international education, which is celebrating students who've studied abroad throughout the year, as well as our graduating international students. And final stretch is a 2-week, 1-week period of a whole bunch of fun, stress relieving events right before finals to kind of launch students out at the end of the academic year. A number of student life resources, many of which are hosting some of those traditions I mentioned on the last slide. But there's a lot of ways for students to be able to engage and feel supported here on campus. One I'd love to highlight here is our live-in learning communities. There's about I think 8 to 9 of them right now. For example, women in STEM. There's an honors one, some related to sports, and we have our global connections live and learn community. So students can live with those that are looking, domestic students and international students looking to live abroad. The nice part about the live and learn communities is they all live in a pod of about 8 to 9 students with a kitchen. So if you have a student that really is concerned about wanting to cook, that might be a good option for them. Our International Programs and Services Office take amazing care of our international students. I'm actually located within that office. So we do have a global office that is very focused on the needs of those students and take them on a variety of events throughout the year. For example, these are some pictures from Philadelphia and DC throughout this last year of students being able to explore with us. So dialing back to housing, there are about 5 to 6 different housing options on campus. Students are required to live on campus at the undergrad level if they have less than 60 credits, which would be 2 years, unless they have a family member or a related sponsor in the region within 40-mile radius. So down at the bottom are about the 4 different dining options, and here are some of the pictures of what housing would look like. The standard housing for students would be 2 rooms with 2 students to 1 room, and within a pod there are 2 bathrooms. So there's a bathroom on each end with the sink outside of it. So it's really looking at giving students a small enough group so they can get to know one another, but also, or a big enough group to get to know one another, but small enough to have a little bit of privacy. I won't play the video of him right now, but I can more than happy to share this testimony of one of our graduating students. This is a good example, if you look at the things that he's involved in on the side, of what a lot of our students are able to do in their time here. Yasser did his bachelor's in business, and he was able to do an internship related to marketing within Philadelphia. And then he came back to campus to do our technology and innovation graduate program. And he's about to be graduating. We're going to miss him. And he's expecting to be able to go back to where he did his internship for his OPT. So we're very proud of the involvement of a lot of our students that have had on campus. And here is just highlighting a few of the stories of our alumni. This student here from India, he actually was the CFO of our Marauder Fund. That is one of our clubs on campus that actually has access to a Bloomberg terminal, the same terminal and technology that they're using down on Wall Street. And they were able to have funding from the university to invest and get really wet their feet in the stock market. And he actually is working within the stock market now, related to a hedge fund downtown or in Philadelphia. So very happy about how he's been able to launch into his career using one of the clubs here on campus. Young Yu, she went immediately from a bachelor's to a PhD program in her school of choice on the West Coast. We're very proud of Abdullah going back home and being able to invest into his country using his major as well. So a lot of great stories from our students and alumni. When you're on the Millersville University website, you'll see a lot of mention to our EPIC values. Don't worry, we spell EPIC that way on purpose because we definitely want to expand and communicate to students, this is who we are. We're a public institution that's really looking to serve our community and our world through these different values. So at the end of the year, at our celebration of international education, we ask students, which of these values do they align with? There are a lot of initiatives that are on campus related to these EPIC values. So when we're talking about our institutional identity, this would be one of the main thrusts of explaining that to a student. So now I'm going to transition to the application process. Millersville University won't have an application fee for any of your students. And really at the undergraduate level, there are 2 main things that we are looking at, which would be English proficiency requirements. We have a full listing of it on our website. When I stop sharing the screen, I'll navigate and show you where that is. So there are multiple ways in which students can demonstrate that English proficiency. There's about 12 different exams, a list of nations that we will automatically waive for. The application itself actually has that programmed, so there's no need to petition for that. There are a few different curriculum types. For example, if your students are taking A-levels curriculum or IB curriculum. If they've completed it, it'll be an automatic waiver if they've successfully completed it. Otherwise, it'll be based off of their grades in specific courses. And then on certain cases, I'm willing to do a case-by-case basis, but please keep in mind, we have an English Language Institute here on campus. So it's also possible for students to be conditionally admitted to either the undergraduate or graduate program if for some reason they don't have that English proficiency requirement at the time of application. We're also looking at transcripts, and we do in-house credential review here at Millersville. On our website for a lot of major countries where we receive applications, we do have a secondary school listing of exactly what I'm looking for, but we do articulate the GPA here on campus within our office. So those will be the two major things that I'm looking at. If a student's borderline, our cutoff GPA for admission is a 2.5. If they're just under it, I'm going to ask for a reference and a writing sample of at least 300 words for me to be able to get some more information about that student, really to make sure that we have a student that's admissible, that's going to be successful on our campus and able to do well utilizing those resources I shared earlier. Other things you'll see on the checklist when the application's finished and submitted, you'll see them asking for the passport, proof of funds, and our source of funds. Those three items are not needed until after an admission is released. But to make that process of obtaining that I-20 quicker, those checklist items will be on the application from the moment it's submitted. For the graduate programs, it's going to vary a little bit depending on the programs that they're applying for. Some of the things highlighted here at the top of the slide are what could be asked. Some of the programs ask for about 3 reference letters. There will be a form or there'll be a link that's sent to references when the application is submitted, but it is possible to submit written references to satisfy that requirement as well. Some of the programs ask for goal statements. And those programs, for example, clinical psychology, which is a huge program for international students, they pay very great attention to that goal statement. So even though right now the application gives me the ability to type it in there, I would upload a nicely formatted, quite long goal statement related to their intentions of the program. English proficiency transcripts also possible to submit unofficial copies, just like I don't remember if I mentioned it. Sorry, guys, I'm waking up. You can submit unofficial copies of transcripts at the time of admission, and we'll require the official copies at the time prior to enrollment if they're admitted. So just at the same token, you can do that for graduate admissions as well. It is not required to have a NACES or what would be an ICE credential evaluation. If they already have one, you can submit a copy of that and we'll utilize that. Please do so prior to us doing our own in-house evaluation. And there will be some programs that might ask for the GRE, GMAT, or NAT if a student has under a 3.0 GPA on a 4.0 scale. Most of our graduate programs cutoff GPA is going to go between a 2.75 or a 2.8, that's the cutoff, and they'll have that in our catalog, or a 3.0 in order not to have to take additional supplemental tests. At the graduate level, the graduate programs would be issuing that decision. So at the undergraduate level, there'll be a quicker turnaround, maybe through two to 3 days, depending on the time of the week. At the graduate program level, it might take up to 2 weeks, depending on the program. So cost of attendance, this is the estimate for the 2023-2024 year based off of our current cycle. The actual costs will be released every year in July. That's when our final costs will be released every year. And tuition is based off of 15 credits at the undergraduate level. We do not have tuition on a credit by credit basis. We have full-time tuition credit benchmarking, the minimum full-time being 12 credits. So 19,290 would be that tuition amounts. And then underneath that, the mandatory fees, housing, meal plan, those total direct costs, no student pays these total direct costs. I'll explain that a little bit on the next slide. But down at the bottom where it's the total anticipated, that would be the I-20 estimates that are required for each of these various levels. So now to talk about scholarships and aid. Millersville University does offer merit-based scholarships. We start issuing them in September and they go up until May 1st. After May 1st, they're offered on the basis of availability. There are some limits on our merit-based scholarships, but they are assigned at the time of application. There's no other application required based off of a student's grade point average. If they have over a 3.0 GPA on a 4.0 scale, they will qualify for a merit-based scholarship. And this is the same for first-year applicants and undergraduate transfer applicants. So our merit-based scholarships are only for undergraduate students. And these are renewable as long as they maintain good standing. So 3.0 to maintain these awards. We do have stackable awards with honors. So we have an honors program. There's about 10 students every year that are selected for an additional $1,000 renewable scholarship. And then athletics. We are an NCAA Division II institution with about 18 teams. So if they are recruited by a coach and offered an award, that would be renewable and would stack on those other 2 awards they could potentially receive. Admissions does administer merit-based scholarships, but of course not the honors or athletic awards. And the other award that Millersville automatically offers at the time of admission, administered by us, would be our reduced tuition grant. This is automatic. It is not tied to GPA. Every student, even after May 1st, they will get it as long as they don't live in Pennsylvania and study full-time. So everyone we're working with. And every first-year student will receive $6,000 reduced tuition. So that when I mentioned on the previous slide, no one pays that $34,000. That's because of this reduced tuition award. And all transfer applicants will automatically receive that $4,000. And again, this is renewable. There's no GPA related to maintain this. They just need to maintain full-time status. There are possibilities for students to be able to enroll in payment plans up to 5-month installments that would need to be paid at the end of that semester with a $30 enrollment fee per semester. And then for graduate students, we have our graduate assistantships, and there are graduate assistantships in many of our programs across campus. There are full-time and part-time graduate assistantships. The full-time graduate assistantships would have that 24 credits per year waiver, as well as a $5,000 stipend. If it's a half-time graduate assistantship, it would be half of what is mentioned here. So here on the slide are some of the major reasons why students choose Millersville University. We give them a great student experience, and there's access to many different major companies around the area for students to get that tangible experience and ROI. So definitely have your students apply today. What you can see, hopefully you can see it highlighted here, is when the students hit that yellow apply now button from our website, they are going to be taken here. It's really important that students follow that international application link because it is a different link than the undergraduate application. So we want to make sure they're all applying, utilizing the right form. So now I'm going to transition really quick and share our website. Largely doing that because, as mentioned, we have 4 different admitting offices, and there is an undergraduate, grad, and online office, all with different admitting staff. For Millersville University, if you're navigating to us from the main website, if you hover over admissions and just go directly to international, it'll take you to millersville.edu/international. Under prospective students, you'll find a summary right here of the undergraduate application requirements. Same for graduate and our English language learners. Under English proficiency, you have a full listing of all of the requirements for English proficiency here on campus. And credential equivalencies are going to have, based on nation, what we're asking to see at the time of admission. So the requirement if they're still in high school, requirement if they've completed high school. So again, when you go to the apply page, you want to hit this page, and applying through Millersville will take you directly to the website here. Going back to the international page, two things that I know you want to see. Costs and tuition right here will take you to the estimates. If you hit student accounts, it'll take you to the main one, so you can see the most released tuition. So this will be updated, and we try to update ours immediately. And then finally, the last one you'll want to see is financial assistance. Here would be where the listing of scholarships and information would be. So that's the last thing I wanted to show you is our website. So happy to jump into any questions that you might have at this time.
Awesome. I will let everyone into the Zoom room so that they can unmute themselves and ask questions that way, or you can always write into the Q&A feature on Zoom. Just give me 1 minute to get everyone let in.
Okay. So Darby, I see the questions here in the Q&A. Would you like me to just start answering those?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. So the first question I see here is there any credential evaluation required? They're not required. They could be suggested at the graduate level, but they're not required. When students apply, they'll submit their materials. If for some reason our institution is not able to do that particular credential in-house, we would ask a student to obtain an ACES or ICE evaluation at that time. So we do reserve the right to ask for one depending on the credential itself, but for a majority of them, we do them in-house. So next question, does the College of Business programs have STEM accreditation? So we do have a number of programs in the College of Business that do have, I think when it says STEM accreditation, you're asking for the STEM recognition from the US government, so the zip code being STEM certified. So for example, our information technology program, as well as the newly launching cybersecurity programs do have STEM recognition, STEM certification. So those students would be eligible for that OPT STEM extension. So those are within the College of Business programs, but there are some College of Business, like if they're doing general business or international business, we do have computer science or a few other programs that students sometimes double major in, or they'll do a major and a minor in. Could you please show a list of programs for graduate students? So for our graduate student programs, that international, so something to keep in mind when you're looking at our website for graduate admissions is that there are some programs that are trending or moving online. And so for our international applicants, it would be our Masters of Arts in History, Masters of Arts in English, our Masters of Science in Clinical Psychology, School Psychology. We have Technology and Innovation with 2 concentrations, one with an education thrust and one with an enterprise thrust. The enterprise thrust is fun because we actually have a lab where they will design a product. We've had students that are pretty industrious that the product that they've designed, they've actually go on to create, manufacture. We have Masters of Education in Early Childhood. English, language and literacy with an ESL focus, and then a reading specialist focus. Our leadership for teaching and learning music concentration is fully on campus, or students are able to do on campus. We have a master's of education in mathematics, school counseling, and sport management. The sport management has an athletic coaching and an athletic management focus. And then there are dual programs. So we have a graduate program in social work. The thing to know about the graduate program in social work is it only starts on campus every summer term. So every summer cycle is when they can start with social work. And social work has dual programs with emergency management as well as sports management. And there you will see other programs on our website for international student or for graduate programs. The ones that I didn't just verbally list off are mostly online, so it wouldn't be possible for a student on an F1. But the list that I just verbally gave to you, I do have written down. And those would be ones that students on an F1 could pursue. So for the last date to apply, at the undergraduate level, we work on a rolling admissions basis. So we will continue to admit students throughout the cycle. If a student is in the country on an F1 visa, all students can be admitted up into like really the first week before term. But logistically, if they're in country the first week before term on a visa, it's more likely for them to be able to enroll. So we can work with them to defer if it's later than that, but we issue on a rolling basis. The May 1st deadline or May 1st decision day that we really enforce is related to our merit-based scholarships, largely to be able to track the basis of availability for those awards. I just wanted to, okay, sorry, the questions are moving a little bit. So the next one, I wanted to ask how to verify I-20 deadlines on the website. We issue on a rolling basis. We'll typically start being more strict about the I-20 releases really mid-July, because at that point, students might not be able to come. If we're working with a student that we feel pretty confident about their ability to get a visa, we'll work with them. So we will work with you just like we issue those decisions on a rolling basis. What are the chances a student can receive a full scholarship? So Millersville University does not extend a full scholarship this time. The cheapest a student would be able to really attend Millersville University for direct costs would be somewhere around $23,000, $24,000, and that's for tuition, housing, meals, all of that together. The next, can you explain the tuition waiver 24 credit hour in case of graduate assistants? So for all graduate assistants that are doing the full-time graduate assistants, they would be working 20 hours a week during the term, and the terms they're expected to work would be that fall term and spring term. They don't have to work during breaks or during the summer. And they would receive up to 24 credits tuition waiver. Right now, full-time graduate enrollment is 9 credit hours per term. So that would be 3 classes, and that would cover full-time enrollment in a graduate program at Millersville. And then they would receive a $5,000 stipend, which would be paid out on a monthly basis. So that would be divided throughout the year, and they would have that paid on that monthly basis. So if a student's in a program that requires an internship, for example, that Master's of Science in Clinical Psychology requires students to have 500 contact hours with clientele for certification. A lot of our international students do not pursue the actual certification, but definitely pursue those hours. For example, one of our graduate assistants here on campus from Mexico is doing that right now. And she can utilize that CPT to be able to gain those hours. So they got a position off campus, they could actually, not super recommended they do the graduate assistantship, and that at the same time, a lot of them will stay and do that for 3rd year, but it's possible for them to sustain both. STEM programs for graduate students. So technology innovation is a STEM certified program. Going back to my list right now. So really the major STEM certified program would be that technology and innovation. Then what is the maximum number of backlogs accepted? And it's 15. So we're going to, we don't really have right now that full policy. It would be the transcripts that we've received, the final grade. I guess that would be what we're looking at. So what is printed as the final grade in that class, we're not looking at how many times they took the class. It's what the institution has communicated on the transcripts. So any enrollment deposit required to get an I-20? Thank you for asking. This is something that's why I really want to make sure that all of you are looking at our portion of the website. The domestic undergraduate office does require a deposit. We do not require a deposit at this time for our students. We do require that they submit the materials for the I-20 and a response form, which is on their checklist, and then we would release their I-20. So there's no deposit required. They will see deposit language on the website if they're looking at domestic undergraduate admissions office. So definitely make sure that you're going directly to our pages and all of the enrollment admitted student pages on the international programs and services page. We have a full checklist of steps for students to take, and there's no language for deposit on our pages. The next, I think I already answered the question on backlogs. We'll come back to what it says on their transcripts. And could you please share some details in terms of deadlines? So we have some deadlines on the website, advisory deadlines for different terms, largely just keeping in mind the time it can take to obtain the I-20 and a visa appointment. So advisory deadlines, for example, would be June 1st for the fall term, November 1st for the spring term. Of course, we're going to process applications after that time. Some of the graduate programs will have deadlines. For example, it would be February, I believe it's February 1st for clinical psychology or all of our psychology programs, but they still will admit after that time, depending on where they are for their class. So most of the deadlines aren't terribly firm. If you're working with a student that you see on the website that there is a cutoff, definitely reach out. We can see if they're still admitting. For example, right now, the psychology departments, as well as the social programs, are still admitting. So could you please, all right, do you accept 15 years education from India? So in that case, what we're looking for, the 3-year bachelor's degrees from India, if they have an N, I think it's early in the morning, so if I screw up the accreditation, but I think it's the NCCA accreditation for those particular 3-year bachelor's programs, we will accept that as a bachelor's degree. Without that, it would be transferable credit. And I do believe that is what you're asking for within that question. If that would be for doing the credential evaluation in-house. Of course, students have the ability to submit an ACES or an ICE evaluation at the time of admission, and we will defer to that if it was submitted at the time the application was submitted. So hopefully that answered your question when you're asking 15 years education is where we would stand on that 3-year bachelor's degree. And then next question, what is the minimum GP requirement for graduate programs? That's going to vary depending on the program, and it will also change slightly depending on if that program would ask for an additional test. So for example, popular programs for international students like clinical psychology, school psychology, technology, innovation, those have a cutoff of a 3.0 GPA, whereas if someone is seeking a program in, let's see, sport management, that's a 2.75 GPA. I'm trying to look through the list of if they're doing social work, that's a 2.8 cutoff GPA. So it might change slightly. And then sometimes it's case by case. If a student has a really impressive profile and it's just slightly under, that's a case where we could potentially talk to the department. But no one will go lower than that 2.75, 2.8 cutoff. Okay, so there was someone else asking about the 2.75, 2.8 cutoff. It will go by program. So the 3-year degree accepted, and that does come down to that recognition by believe it is the NCCA, or it's the NCAA. I think it's NCCA. I'm sorry, guys, my coffee is finished and I need to see it in front of me, but hopefully you know which group I'm talking about. Do you accept students with education gap for graduate or undergraduate? So a gap in education between their degrees is completely fine. We're not going to question that terribly if it's a very, very large gap. And for example, there are students that are coming that have maybe a 10, 20-year gap. It's a first-year student. We might have a conversation with that student at that time just to make sure that this is a legitimate application. If we're working with you, we won't question it in the same way. But if it's a gap between a bachelor's and a graduate degree that's quite long, of course, they're probably working, life happens. And within the last few years, most students are coming with a gap between high school to first year of a few years, just because things have been happening around the world. So that's not something that we would question or something that would be detrimental. We will work with them to be able to meet their needs. And then we're really coming down to those awards based off of their performance. And that's going to be based off, we're articulating their GPA based off of that list of credentials that we have on our website. So depending on their country, not every country in the world is listed there. If you happen to be working with someone from a country that we're not listed, definitely reach out for exact items needed. But their GPA will come down to that. We're not looking at that gap. Or their award will come down to their GPA. We're not looking at that gap. And then TAT for offer letter for graduate programs. I am sorry, I'm not sure what that is referring to. The TAT, if you could elaborate on that.
It's turnaround time for offer letters he's asking for.
Okay, thank you. That's not an acronym I've seen before. So it would come, it's going to depend on the graduate programs. The reality is some of our graduate programs are going to take a little bit longer than others, but one of the STEM certified graduate program of technology and innovation, he has a very quick turnaround time. So that is typically when everything is received. So of course, the letters of reference sometimes can keep that a little bit longer. I would give him, depending on the time of year. So if it's midterms or finals, he might take slightly longer, maybe about 1.5 to 2 weeks, if not sooner.
Awesome. If anyone has any last questions, feel free to write them in or unmute yourself, of course. That was super helpful, Anna. Thanks for going through all those Q&As with us. We're so happy to have had you here with us today and so excited to know more about Millersville University. If anyone has any further questions, now's your time. If not, then we will go ahead and conclude the webinar.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to working with all of you.
Just making sure there's no one left that needs any questions.
So no worries, like if anyone has any questions about Millersville admission requirement and application process, so you guys can connect with us as well. So Shrikant is there in Hyderabad, I'm here in Mumbai. So if you have any questions, you all have our number. Just connect with us and we will try to solve your answer and queries ASAP.
Awesome. Thank you, Jatine. This webinar was also recorded and will be posted to the Wellspring YouTube account. So if you ever want to come back to this and have a quick refresher or know anyone that wasn't able to make it today, you can refer them to our YouTube. Great. Well, everyone have a great rest of your day. Happy Monday. And again, thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.